Very well. I have my water, I have my Q-tips, I have my paper towels, I have my tiny scissors, I have my salva set, and I have my instructions and my decals, most importantly. I have taken off the chest piece because there are several decals that go on the chest piece, and I can work on that separately while other places are drying. My first victims are going to be what's on the broad of the back there, numbers 9 and 10 and 12 and 13, which is basically here, 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 and here. And I'm going to use that as my test case to see how much surface prep we need. Now I got to put on the funny glasses. I can tell you that these decals look great. When they're working, they work like a charm. Unfortunately, they don't all work because about half of the instructions for placement are missing. I am going to guess as well as I can, like if 16 and 17 are used on one arm, I'm going to presume 14 and 15 are used on the other arm, or 15 and 18, whatever. Not all of them are accounted for, front and back, so I'll just have to put on what I know and guess for the rest. But they are very tough and very bright and have very little carrier film on them, so I don't think we're going to have a problem with them yellowing or anything like that, so I'm just putting them on the bare plastic. I've got all the decals down now that I've got instructions for, and I've still got these two very nice big ones here. I think I'm going to put them on the undersides of the wrists so they'll be nice and visible. I'm making it up as I go because, like I said, I didn't see any other places for them. Okay, the last two decals that I had no space for, or no instruction of where to put, I decided to put on the, you can see them there, I decided to put them on the back of the knees. It looked like a fairly dangerous place to have a danger signal, so that's where those go. And now we let young Mr. Igor dry, get the decals all dry, and finish up his base, and he'll be done. We're really close now, kids. Okay, Igor, I've taken Igor out into the other room, and his decals are drying, and now it's time to take another stab at Catwoman's face. I have put in a basic tone and used the Calm Art Bone Flesh. Actually, these are all the flesh colors are Calm Art. It's a base of Rojas flesh and accents of mouse flesh and bone color, and I'm using the bone color on her teeth and eyes because I think if you make them really bright white, you run the risk of it looking out of scale. I mean, who actually has bright white teeth? So the next step is going to be to work on these eyes. Wish me luck. Okay, we're getting ready to close up for a Friday night, and I've got Igor nicely drying in the other room, and here it's a little bit blown out here. Maybe you can see some of the colors better maybe if I put... Catwoman's looking okay. We have to tone down the eyeshadow a bit. She's kind of looking a little bit like Frankenfurter there, a little bit too strong on the eye makeup. But then again, I don't have a lot of experience putting on women's eye makeup, so that likeness really is good, though. I'm astounded how good that turned out, or how well it is molded. So if I can just get rid of the blank expression and do some pupils, then we'll be able to sew this up. Okay, I've been going for a while here Saturday morning without documenting anything, so I think it's time to pull the camera out and show you what I've been up to. Working on Catwoman's face. I will tell you right now, I will never begrudge a woman taking time to put on her makeup ever again. I'm still working on the eyes, but I have been doing tiny little bits and putting it aside, and tiny little bits and putting it aside. Let me get the light off of it so it's not so harsh. I think it's looking pretty good. Now those eyes, the pupils and the iris is still not there yet. But I've been doing slowly but surely. I find I like the eyeliner, I leave it alone. I like the eyebrows, I leave it alone. I come back and do the whites and I leave it alone because it is too much to handle all at one time. And working on the Icarus, I am getting the bunks finished up so that I can put those in place. I'm going to paint the controls. I'm working on detailing the seats, which includes painting in detail that isn't there on the molding. So putting those in place, and then once I get the seats and the controls done and the bunks done and the glass in, I'll be able to close it up. And that's my goal for this weekend, is to get it closed up. I may not get much more than that, getting it closed up and getting it puttied, but that's my goal for the weekend. And lest you forgot, I was out here in the other room with Igor. Wanted you to see how his decals turned out. These decals are very clear, down to where you can actually read that text, which is pretty amazing. Pardon my jittery arms, I just had some coffee. But decals there, decals on the back, which they really do set it off. They do make the model. So now that he is done, I am concentrating on the base. I need to finish it up, and what I've done is I put a flat coat over the bricks and a flat coat on the back wall, and I need to epoxy the wall to the bricks like such, and put some felt on the bottom and some felt on the back walls, because you might end up seeing that and it's ugly, and then I can epoxy him to the base and he'll be done. Turning our attention to the back of the wall for a minute, I have put a coat of the black sandable primer on here, and then sanded it lightly, as you do with sandable primer, and then put a coat of the black auto paint that I used for Catwoman's her cat suit, and it's got a nice black sheen to it. Now I'm going to do is put a flat coat over it, so that it dulls it down a bit, and then I'll be ready to attach it to the base. Continuing work on the Icarus, getting to this back plate issue, and frankly the issue is this back plate is crap. It's not really well cast. Every time I tried to paint it, it would come up with more pinholes in it. I don't know whether you can see what looks like a rash there. That's just pinholes. I sanded, I scraped, I puttied over, but every time I would hit paint, it would hit a patch of those pinholes, and I think that's just crappy resin mix. It's never going to work out. There's some spots that's like that on the door, but I think I can work with that. But this piece is just so poorly made, and it's flat, easy enough to recreate scratch building. So I just traced it onto a piece of sheet styrene and retraced it onto a piece of sheet styrene, and I'm just going to remake it. It's easier than trying to fix what will probably never be fixable. All I need to do is to attach thrusters to the back of it anyway, and cut a hole for the door, and it's done. So I'm just going to spare myself some heartache and make a new piece here. Okay, this is either going to work or it's going to blow up in my face. I've been pondering and figuring and trying to think the best way to do this, and it looks like the best way to handle these bunks is going to be to attach them to the top part, and then move the whole things, attach them there, put the window frames in there and all that, and then move the whole thing onto here to round out the back. I don't think there's going to be a better way to do that and ensure that there is a nice tight seam at the ceiling, which is what I'm aiming for. You know you're getting close to the end when you put the chairs in. Got the chairs in, and I read somewhere, and it seemed like common sense after I read it, which makes it really common sense. When you're positioning chairs in a ship like this, that if you put one of them, I mean, it's nice to make them all face forward and all that kind of stuff, and it's good for your anal retentiveness, but it's good to have one just kind of at an angle. It makes it a little bit unusual, makes it look a little bit lived in, and gives it some visual interest. So I just put that back one in at a slight angle. And don't worry about this mess here, it's going to get covered up by the frame. But I've got the top bunks in, and I've got some, I guess it's two-part epoxy, in around the edges. And of course, I'm going to have to go back and touch that with the paint. But basically, it's just sealing in, and then, you can't see me light up in there, I'm going to touch up the paint in there and put the frames in. Here is a shot straight down the barrel, so you can see how profoundly unpretty that is. And you can see where the angles are off and where nothing quite lines up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remake some fascias on the back of those bunks, and hopefully what that'll do is maybe kind of clean it up a bit and allow me to attach some magnets there so that I can put the back plate on, the new back plate on with a magnet. But I have got things epoxied in, and I think what I'm going to do is just leave this taped up tonight to kind of get used to the form, let it cure in place, and take another running stab at it tomorrow. Now those walls look a little better, at least a little bit cleaner and a little more unified. They're only glued in at the top. They're not glued in at the bottom, but they do help me round out the oval of the back. Now that I've got it kind of taped down and forced into shape, those do wedge up the back panel sufficiently to round it out a little bit. But that does neaten up those walls. And once I take this apart tomorrow, I can touch up the paint and all that. But it'll give me a place to attach the back panel to. That's all of one surface. Okay, I think I'm happy with Catwoman. Now, do not mind the reflections. I have just sprayed her with a coat of flat, and it's coming out a little bit wet and glossy right now. When it dries, it'll be nice and flat, and then I will go back in and gloss her eyes and her teeth and her lips, and then she will be done. This is like the third or fourth attack on those eyes, and I think I'm finally happy with them. If not, at least I've gotten to the point where I don't want to muck it up by trying anything else. So she gets attached to her body, and then she will be done. But yeah, there's some good lighting. Don't mind the hot spot on her forehead. Lovely. Okay, it is Sunday around 1-ish. I have taken care of my normal Sunday morning duties, and we are going to finish up a couple of kits today. This is fun. This is when so many things come together, and we have a photo finish of several kits across the finish line at the same time. Enough horsing and not racing analogies. Let's get on with it. To finish Igor, I have to do two things. I have to cover the back walls, and I have to glue him down. I have to put a little epoxy on his toes and glue him down. What I've got, I just came back from Michael's, where I picked up a couple of these adhesive sheets of felt, And basically what I'm going to do is lay this up against it and trace it off and cut it and fit it to shape. Now, the back of the stand is not something you normally worry about, but I'm planning on taking him to Wonderfest this year, and I want to dress up the back of the back of these walls because it's going to be out on a table, and you're going to see the back of it, and there's no reason, if you can't, to not make it look as good as the rest of the kit. So that's the next step. It's a very tight fit, but as luck would have it, I can get both sides out of one piece. Just that little bit here where it comes close. So I'm trimming out, penciling off the other side, and all I gotta do is pull the backing off and attach it to the back, and we'll be done. Time for the last bit of progress on Igor. I need to put some epoxy around the posts there, and I will have him stuck down to the base, and he will be finished. And he is down. He's down. He's on his base. I'm ready to dust this one off and call it done. Quite a fun build, I gotta say. The dragon kits, the vinyl ones are iffy, but if you get one that's made of styrene, boy, it's a good kit. Well designed, well manufactured, goes together, well engineered, goes together like a charm. And the thing about painting with all-clads, yes, there's definitely a learning curve. You really got to make sure your surface underneath is free of blemish. But also another fun learning thing. I really like using his all-clads, and I can really see their appeal and where on certain subjects they would be the ultimate paint to use. So I'm going to move him out to the showcase table, and there's those decals again. I just can't get over how well those decals turned out. I'm glad I found them. See if I can zoom in on it, and yeah, I'll just get, come on, see if I can focus. Well, I won't take up your time on that, making you seasick trying to focus. But they're there, they're crisp, they're clear as a bell. And add that little extra punch to it. A good kit. And it's nice to see the unusual color, the blue and silver, as opposed to the traditional golden candy apple red from the other Iron Man suits. Okay, and for the second kit that's racing towards the finish line, we have Catwoman. Earlier this morning, I sprayed a coat of flat on her to kind of blend all the skin tones together, plus knock down the gloss that was on those ears. And now what I'm going to do is to go back in with a clear gloss and do her eyes and lips and teeth. Well, I've heard numerous people on numerous boards say that if you wait and paint your Catwoman and Batman and Robin and Riddler and Penguin and all those bases at the same time, that way you'll make sure they're the same color. But oh no, I thought I could just match up the color I did from the last time. Nah, when I put the color of the base next to the Catwoman base next to the Batman base, it was a different color of brown. So lesson learned, I have reprimed that Catwoman base, and I've looked at the Batman base to see if I can determine exactly how I did paint it, and I can tell that yes, I used that sand texture paint on it between the primer and the brown. So I have reprimered the Catwoman. I'm going to use that textured paint, and then by the time I use the same brown over top of it, the color should match back up. But you know, silly me, I thought I remembered exactly how I had done it. So a little bit of a snag of a delay, maybe a half an hour or an hour on Catwoman's base, but while I can be painting that while I'm working on something else, and it'll still be done this weekend, no worries. Okay, there you see Catwoman's base that has been repainted with the gray and then the Caribbean sand, and I've brought out what I remember as being the colors I used on the base. And I've got the other base here just as a guide. But now I'm ready to crack open the Icarus and see how it sat up overnight. I may have been a little bit overly optimistic about the chances of closing up the Icarus today. When I opened it up, I saw that I had to do quite a bit of puttying around the bunks, and I need to let this dry and repaint it before I can close it up. I can do some more work. I can paint the tops of the bunks. I can paint up in those walls there. I can get the frames ready to go in, but I don't think I can in good conscience close it up knowing that I've got that much work to do and to paint. I just kind of ferret everything in with epoxy, and I can touch up some stuff that's already dry. We'll see as the afternoon progresses. I'm going to set this outside and let it dry a little bit more quickly than normal, and I'll work on Catwoman's base. Okay, we're closer in color, but then something else cropped up. I don't know who to blame or why, but this is how their two bases are supposed to fit together, and it's a good 1/8 of an inch taller than the other one, and I don't like that. So I'm going to have to sand some off of the bottom, sit this on a belt sander or something, and see if I can get it down an even amount to where it matches the top of the other one. See that line? You can see how much has to come off. That's going to have to take a trip to the belt sander to do that. You know what they say about having the right tool for the right job. The older I get, the more sense that actually makes. That was 10 seconds on the belt sander. Actually, it took me longer to dig it out, set it up, turn it on, than it did to sand down the height of this piece of base. And you can see that that scribe mark is gone now. And it's been... Whew, I'm out of breath from lugging the sander up and back, but that's looking pretty darn good. It looks a little bit more defined than that, and I think that has to do with the amount of texture spray I put on this. So it kind of may have filled in the rocks, or else they just sculpted this with a lot more detail than this piece. So now I'm going to epoxy them together and maybe fill in with a little bit of Bondo there, or not Bondo, but epoxy sculpt, and then try to blend the two paints together. Here's a lovely couple. Now this looks glossy because I sprayed a coat of flat on it, hoping that I could knock it down to match the finish of the other base. But so that's why it looks a little bit shiny. But here's the happy couple. If I can get in on her face. And his face. I am right down to the finish line, and I am probably not going to finish today. I'll certainly show you this on next week's report, but I've got to stick the pussy cats down, the gold cats down, and I don't want to do that until I'm happy with those two bases blending, and she's not been glued down either. She's finished, but not glued down. Okay, here's one quick last look at the final Catwoman slash, well, I've got her next to Batman, but Catwoman and Igor. Get on in on there, zoom in on that face. How's that face going? And the other charming individuals I've finished up in the last few weeks. I'm going to need another display case if I keep going at this speed. And here's the last bit of reporting for the Icarus for this weekend. It's not to say I've finished work, it's just that the time it takes to get all these clips downloaded and put together and edited and made into a video with some sort of semblance of sense to it, which takes some time on a Sunday afternoon. So if I do any more work on this today, you won't notice it until next week. But here's the current state where I'll leave it. Interior I'm very happy with, mostly done. I need to put the frames on these bunks and the glass behind them, and then they'll be done. And the same here, I need to paint up. Of course, I need to paint all of that, repair it and paint it and put the frames in there. But 2 out of 3 ain't bad, as Meatloaf used to say, or probably still says. And we've got 2 of the 3 projects finished. We've got, well, the Catwoman is so close to being finished that I'm calling it finished. I got to stick the stupid cats down. That's about it. But a goodly amount of work done for this weekend. So until next week, when we'll pick this back up and hopefully start on Colonial 1, and I'll give you a last look at the finished Catwoman. But until then, keep your feet on the ground and keep building models.